All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the final episode of the MIT Beyond Food Bootcamp series. My name is Andrew Ngui, coming live to you from MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Today, we're going to be discussing bioplastics, drones, venture capital in developing countries. And for those who are joining us for the very first time, this is a webinar series that showcases the diversity of the challenges you could solve at the MIT Beyond Food Bootcamp in Taiwan this September. You will acquire a practical understanding of the MIT innovation frameworks and new venture leadership skills. You will also gain access to the Taiwanese and MIT innovation ecosystems and acquire insights into new and emerging models. And to recap, we've been exploring this diverse spectrum of the food innovation lifecycle and journey. We asked for questions and you have provided an immense, if not overwhelming, amount of questions, and we want to thank you for that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our guest today. We have Bárbara from ECOPLASO, Luciano from Elio, and Paul Lam, who was working with the World Bank and now is a venture capital investor. So I'm going to hand it over to Bárbara. Bárbara, take it away. Unfortunately, the internet connection in Mexico, where Bárbara is right now, is low, so I hope you will be okay with just an audio version from Bárbara. Bárbara. Bárbara, you there? All right, there may be some problems with Bárbara, so let's go to Luciano. Luciano.
Hi, my name is Luciano. I'm from Brazil. I'm from class 1 from the first run of the bootcamp. My work now in the last 3 years was to bring Elio to reality. I think I really faced a lot of challenge, and the bootcamp really helped it. Already we have paying customers. I'm really excited to share what we learned in the fields. It's not an easy place. There's a lot of work to do there. I think everybody that's connected in this webinar are looking for this kind of implementation, are worried about problems, and to bring solutions to the reality. Elio now we are working in specific areas like soybean, sugarcane, orange, citrus, peanuts, potato, counting cattle, and we are learning a lot. The important thing is that we are really bringing results to the farmers. We started with really focus on the technology, but during the process we learned a lot. It's really important to listen to the customer. It was our motto all the time, and it's an honor to be here.
All right, so then we move on to Paul.
Hi everyone,
all right.
This is Paul. So I'm actually from the previous class in MIT, should be class 4, Andrew, like we have too many classes now, I just lost sight. Now, previously I was working in World Bank, like mainly around climate business, and now I have stepped into the VC world and also mainly spending my time advising startups on their fundraising and also helping them on devising their strategies. Now, this is a very exciting topic. Now, seeing a lot of questions from you guys, and I think food is collectively now one of the largest, if not the most important issues that we're all facing collectively. Now, there have been almost 5 billion in total funding going into AgTech since 2009, and just in 2015 we have seen almost 500 million going into it. Now, AgTech is a very difficult sector for a few reasons, and I guess everyone here, including Luciano, will probably agree with that. Unlike fintech, healthcare, or any other sectors, agriculture is very much a status quo business where the market participants and people engaging in the sector are sometimes very old school, traditional, and the sectors have evolved a lot of bureaucracies from the government, from land use, from regulators, from everything. So this is a very interesting yet challenging sectors, and hopefully today we can share a little bit more the insights and also some of my expectations about the sectors going forward.
Exciting. Let's head back to Bárbara. Bárbara, are you there? Okay, it seems that the... Oh, there you go. Bárbara?
Oh. Yeah, sorry about that. So I'm Bárbara from Puebla, in Mexico. I'm from the class 4, the same as Paul. And I'm the founder of ECOPLASO, which transform fruits and vegetable waste into bioplastic. And I'm very glad to be here with you guys.
All right, so Bárbara, tell us about the story behind ECOPLASO.
Well, ECOPLASO started 2 years ago as an alternative for the transformation of the organic waste of my own university in Mexico. And everything started during lunchtime at the cafeteria. Because during that time, I saw like thousands of plastic and styrofoam packaging at the garbage container. But also, like next to that container, I also saw like tons of organic waste. And then I thought, why we cannot match like those two problems and make a solution? So 2 years ago, we started with an idea to transform all that organic waste into bioplastic that can be transformed into food packaging. So right now we have developed a couple of packaging, mainly for disposable packaging as plates and straws and cutlery. And yes.
So if maybe I can ask a little bit, because I'm sure the viewers would like to know, what is the plastic made of?
Yes. At the beginning, we started like with almost 5 types of fruits, and we started with oranges, bananas, mandarins, mangoes, and watermelons, because those were like the most, and also papayas, because those were like the mainly fruits for the breakfast in Mexico. And right now we are just focusing on the citrus sector with lemons, oranges, grapefruits, and mandarins.
So, and which part of the fruit do you actually use to create bioplastics?
Right now we are using the peels or the skins mainly, but also we are able to use the seeds and the bagasse.
Wow, that is extremely impressive. And so, when you talk a little bit about packaging, can you give us examples of what kind of packaging do you actually make?
Yes, right now we are, well, our main product is like a box for rice or salad, and we also have a plate, and those packages are disposable, like those are compostable after 8 months. So after you use them, you can put them in the garden, and they are going to be like totally compostable after 8 months.
So it degrades into, these sort of parts of, and then you can put it back into the soil in 8 months.
Yes.
Got it. Great. All right. So now I think this is really exciting. The fact that you can have your plate that go back into the food supply chain as now we're talking about resources, converting waste into resources, and also addressing this huge issue of waste going to landfills versus converting this idea of the landfills into actually perhaps fertilizer. I think that is fantastic. And on the subject of fertilizer, I'm sure Luciano, I'm thinking Italian, but Luciano, please share a little bit more about the journey with Elio and how this exciting scale journey is happening.
Yeah, the last 3 years was really intense. The team is growing now. We already have 12 people working at Elio. We started with, as I said, focus on the technology about the drones and how we build these sensors and capture these kind of images. And now we are really constructing the layers over it. We passed to the process to be maybe the state of art on data archiving in Brazil. We have amazing quality on the image. We are really sure that the information is it's really high quality. For example, the near infrared image, the red edge image. We have tested a lot of sensors, and it was the first part of the journey. After that, during the field experience, we start to show it to the farmers and to the companies that we start to work. And there is an important thing, that's why we are bringing this information to the farmer. The farmer have a really hard day, they work a lot, and when we come with this information, they say, yes, amazing, it's a good information, but what we do with that? And this is the most important learning to be in the fields that we are doing, and we are bringing this kind of technology, but the focus is to bring results, to really be more sustainable, to use less pesticides, petrochemicals, and to control the crop in a way that we are more efficient on the end of the day. And during the process, we traveled more than 6,000 kilometers on the pickup trucks, flyed more than maybe 5,000. I don't know what's the number. We are trying to track it on a really disciplined way. We are archiving tons of data. The number of the amount of information are really complex that we started to work on algos that go over it. This is a sequence. We started to understand how to acquire high quality data, a perfect operation on the fields, really safe, flying well. Okay, we are good. We went to the data archiving, data interpretation. It becomes a big problem because we are receiving lots of images in high resolution. Then we started to construct layers of artificial intelligence, computer vision that help us bring this information. There we have two ways to work. One is really based on the biology of the plant and the results, understand what is the amount of photosynthesis, and the other work is about the mechanical part. For example, we have a specific product where we reconstruct, we do we fly over the crop in a really high resolution image, and we developed a system that we can reconstruct the plant rows on sugarcane, and it can reduce the smashing during the crop operation like 3 or 5% during the crop season. It's a lot of money that we are talking about, and we are learning all the time. The farmer know where is the problems on the field. We keep our ears really open, and this is our job now. We are going to the fields, we are providing this information, but we still looking for problems where we can really add value. This is the work now, and this process is what we really focus here at MIT, at the bootcamp, to really understand what the customer really need, what is the real problem of the farmer, because we love technology for sure. We play with the best toys in the world, but it will be just a toy if you don't really bring an important result for the farmer on the end of the day.
Thank you, Luciano. Probably the bigger piece here is about how you started. I know you're working on many parts, but at the start, when Elio first started, what were you trying to use drones as a service to accomplish? Can you just share maybe one small chunk on that?
I think during the process, we was looking for a way to, sorry, I don't know if I understand exactly the question, Andrew, but...
what did you start with? Like, what was the problem, the initial problem that you wanted to solve? I know you expanded.
When I came to the bootcamp, I was totally fixed on the idea to bring my prototype, my airship, my blimp to reality. It's still running. Now it's like a spin-off of Elio because we're still running as a research. But I was totally focused on bringing this hardware to reality, and I didn't understand the process, the full process to do this prototyping. Why do this prototyping? Who was the customer? And then I started to learn about the fields and the use of the infrared cameras, and I focused on our beachhead market on soybean. And this process came from a hardware, a knowledge on R&D, to a service business was what happened during the bootcamp. We still using our knowledge on R&D, on hardware. We are building our own fixed wings, multi-rotors. This is part of our strategy because the turnkey system is still really expensive, and we need to modify a lot it because the size of the crops are different. Then the core, the initial core that was the R&D is still a good thing for us, but during the bootcamp I really learned that to bring it to reality, I needed to understand the customer.
So if I understand what you just said correctly, really is to use drones, use infrared cameras, and look at how you can diagnose crop disease and treat crop disease. But originally, what you started with is to create a custom drone shop. And so, custom drone shop, not very scalable. So you created an innovation lab for drones there.
Yeah.
And so if there are people out there that are interested in developing your own drones, I would say talk to Luciano.
Yeah.
Luciano. And then if you're interested in the scalable component in terms of agriculture diagnosis, crop diagnosis, that's the other part of the system. So I think that's really awesome. And you raised money during this process, and so I want to kind of use that as a great segue into Paul's area of work in terms of venture capital. So Paul, take it away with your journey in terms of how you got into venture capital.
Sure. So previously, when I was in World Bank, I was already working with early stage renewable equipment companies, from solar panels to turbine manufacturing and some for storages. Now, what MIT Bootcamp was really great is that giving me the courage to quit my job and flew back all the way to London, starting my new career. I'm now working in an impact accelerator within the CDC group, which is basically an investment arm under the UK government. That our mandate is basically to invest in riskier greenfield projects and some of the companies that probably need some help in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. So one of the very interesting investments that we have done actually in about a year and a half before was the African Improved Food, which is a startup that started in Rwanda and trying to provide baby food and also nutritionist food to the moms. Now, this is a very new initiative because there's not so much technology being involved, but it is very groundbreaking because in Africa, traditionally, you only see very basic baby foods. But this is really the first time where quality baby and mom's food are being produced in a massive scale and produced in Rwanda and supplying to also countries like Ethiopia. Now that is very interesting, and I guess from my point of view, in order to look at agri-tech, first of all, I think it's very important for everyone in this webinar to address that agriculture is probably just one part of the whole value chain of the food industry, from land to irrigation to harvesting to planting and harvesting, and then to the supply chain, food processing to retail, warehousing, and also the financial sectors around agriculture, where you see banks like Rabobanks and other banks who are providing financial services, credits, insurance, derivatives around climate. Now, the whole innovation spectrum is so wide and so complicated for the food industry. So, first of all, I would say it's very important to first understand where you stand in your spectrum, and that is really how you find the venture capital and the right money to go into your firm. Now, as I pointed out in the very early of this conversation, that agri-tech is very difficult because, as I said, it wasn't even 5 billion, sorry. If you only look at agri-tech, since 2009, there was only 13 agri-tech venture capital funds that solely focus on agri-tech. 13, 1-3. I think that number probably gone up by 2 or 3, but there are only 13 VCs around the globe, and the total fundraise was probably around 1 billion only. Now, recently we see a Chinese VC called Ching coming up, which raised around 500 million, but that tells you it's not a lot of money floating around finding these agri-tech. The reasons are really twofold. If you look at the investor landscape, like traditionally money comes from VCs, but in this sector, you very much see other players as well. Traditional private equity firms, they're also looking at earlier stage agri-tech companies. Strategic buyers like Syngenta, they have their own corporate incubators and venture arms. And you also see the leading venture capital firms like Finesis and Cavalion. These are backed actually by some of the big guys, big agri firms as well. Now, food industry is very difficult for venture capital money because the cash required is very risky. Like if you invest in an agricultural sector, very much you will be in countries like emerging markets and also some of the second tier countries, or you will be in US or in China, where basically the sector is already highly developed. Like you wouldn't imagine the technology of Syngenta being like really old-fashioned. That's really not the case. These guys are at the forefront of mechanization, using satellite and everything. So in order to find that sweet spot for VC, which is high growth, intensified need, niche market, targeted customers, agriculture is very difficult. Because this is a sector, if I have to say, like if you look at human history, this is the longest industry ever in humanity.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult for us to find opportunities. If I may just close with one last comment, and then we probably can explore a little bit more in the Q&A session, is that agriculture is a very localized market. Why would I say localized? In one way, agriculture is globalized in terms of its price, in terms of distribution. One of the companies that we work with in Malawi, the sugar price is very much affected by what's happening in Europe. That the euro depreciation can kill a company in Africa for no reasons, just because the agricultural product is priced in euros. So in that sense, it's globalized. On the other hand, it's super localized. The smallholder farmers, the farmer dynamics, the traders, everything is so local that if you go from one village to another village, the whole landscape is completely different. And you will also see the local government, sometimes they have their own dynamics playing out. Like if you just roll out a technology and tell them, you know what, I can improve your productivity, and then behind the scene, mechanization will wipe out 50% of the farmers, I can guarantee you that the technology will not work, because farmers are one of the most powerful political group. Even if you look at Europe today, the common agricultural policies are still driving votes, and in US, farmers have the biggest say. So you very soon get into this like political dynamics with the local communities. So if I may close it, like there are a few challenges here, but people shouldn't be discouraged by it, because this is exactly why entrepreneurship is required in the food industry and beyond food. And beyond food doesn't mean that you need to have some very cutthroat, like crazy technologies, you know, like you can just make things happen. Not necessarily that. Any incremental application of existing technologies and how do you apply the technologies into the reality would significantly change the lives of the farmers and also significantly improve the problem of food crisis that we have seen today in many parts of this world.
This is thank you, Paul, for that. It's really fascinating, this whole issue of entrepreneurship, and more so entrepreneurship in the agri-tech, agribusiness area. In fact, Charles Nichols, who we profiled on one of the last webinars, had said that, you know, in developing countries, it is significantly challenging to just sell your startup service or product offering, but really the issue here is providing an integrated product that or service that really integrates into society. Can you talk a little bit more about what you see in terms of your perspective for from an investor's perspective in terms of how integration in developing countries is so significantly an issue that could, you know, in many ways global as well as local issues, impact the success of businesses?
Sure. I think the way that I think about it, like maybe if I understand your question correctly, is how the interactions of emerging market countries with the global economy important to the success of businesses.
So there's two parts, the global piece and also the local piece. So, you know, things like, for example, you know, his business was about using solar panels to power drip irrigation. But in order for that to even sell, they had to implement a microfinance piece, which was previously not even available in Kenya. So there's the global sort of value chain plus the local piece that you were also talking about.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great question, Andrew. So maybe let me use an example. So what happens in Malawi in the sugar industry, or in Kenya for the macadamia nuts industry? What we have often seen is the agricultural sector is very much interlinked with the local dynamics and the global market situations. So take Kenya, for example, macadamia nuts is very hard to harvest. Like it's basically, you need to grow it, and the best macadamia nuts is always grown like beside a coffee tree. I will leave the specialist to tell me why. Like really fresh and good macadamia nuts, when you eat it, it just breaks into two halves and it's so creamy in the middle. Now the problems with the Kenyan farmers is that most of the smallholder farmers are planting macadamia nuts, and we call it like really high value add plants. The problem with it is because they don't have access to credit, and they don't have access to money that can grow their operations. And also because of the global dynamics, most of the buyers are actually from China. And these Chinese investors, when they buy macadamia nuts, they're paying cash. So a lot of the time, because of these cash transactions, a lot of smallholder farmers, they don't build up their credit. And also because the Chinese buyers, they always want to buy like class 2 or class 3, which is not necessarily the best quality. It often forces the farmers, the smallholder farmers, to harvest the macadamia nuts prematurely. Now, if you look at the market, like what will be the solution for this? Now, would drones help? Would any other things that will help? Definitely. Precision agriculture would definitely help the macro of the agricultural sector that we have seen in Kenya. The application of drones and some of the other technology actually supported by the Kenyan government allows some of the Kenyan farmers to upgrade their farms to grow tea instead of growing like some of the higher value added crops instead of like the cheap ones. So really satellite imaging, those help like in a macro sense. But if you look at the individual smallholder farmers, what do they need the most? They need access to credit. That is unfortunately not a problem that can easily be solved by just implementing a technology. It requires a change of the system. And sometimes innovations like M-Pesa, which is a mobile currencies, actually help the situation a lot, because now what happens is some of the startups are coming by and trying to buy the macadamia nuts with mobile currencies with M-Pesa, so that to help the smallholder farmers to build up their credit record and transaction records, so that after a year they can go to the bank or even through the M-Pesa platform, they're saying that, hey, these are the trade records that we have done for the last year. Can I borrow some money to buy a bigger equipment and basically to do it? So we still see that in emerging market countries, for example, technology is important, but more importantly is how do you build that ecosystem? And it's very important that we always bear in mind that some of the dynamics are uncontrollable. So hopefully this Kenyan example shows you it's not just about putting in the technology, but also understanding the market, the local dynamics, and trying to play around some of the other sectors like financial sectors, logistics, and trying to build an all-in solution to help to improve the sector.
Well, thank you, Paul. That has been certainly significantly insightful. And speaking about diversity, I think that's really core to what we do here at the boot camps. Just the incredible diversity in age, geographic location, industry, and background. I just want to hear, maybe start from you, Paul. The diversity of the boot camp. What was your experience like?
Sorry, it just broke a little bit.
Right. So really, I was just talking about the diversity of what you were talking about and understanding the ecosystem, the platforms, the frameworks that we have to build in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. And this really is a good segue for what we do here at the boot camps and your experience at the boot camp. So maybe you can share your experience when you came to the boot camp and how this diversity helped you think outside the box, think completely, especially in regards to what you guys were proposing.
I mean, first of all, it was great to meet Bárbara and Luciano. Obviously, Brazilians are more passionate than average Asians. Now, so that type of diversity, it's important, because in MIT, I have really met entrepreneurs from around the globe, including financial investors around the globe. Now, that is important because we are living in a world where I believe innovation is proportional to the interconnectedness of network. Innovation sometimes is, apart from technological innovations like drones that Luciano is now doing, it requires some hardcore understanding about the science. But in general, I believe innovation is proportional to interconnectedness of the network and diversity, because in very much the case, say for example, what I saw in China, which is the status quo, let's say using of Alipay or Tencent wallet, it could be a great innovation in Africa. And by just having that dialogue as a Chinese with someone from Brazil or someone from South Africa, then instantly you get that innovation being incubated. Not necessarily you need to create new things. Sometimes it's just by applying existing technologies, which is very mature in one country, to another one, boom, you get innovation. And that is really powerful. And secondly, I think the diversity also comes into the background of people, not geographical or ethnical background, but people like myself who has a bit more a strategic or a policy background, that can talk about things non-stop, versus some people who are hacking a solution who is very result and process oriented, plus someone who has a great vision about a particular topic and very good knowledge in a particular sector. Now that knowledge transfer again will build great innovations, and that's how we see how I saw myself like learning so much from the MIT Bootcamp. It's the diversity of geography, diversity of our background, and more importantly, the diversity of our knowledge. And through that infusion, we really see entrepreneurship being a natural result. Entrepreneurship doesn't need to be particularly practiced in the bootcamp. I think entrepreneurship just come out naturally because you have so many people from different countries. Everything you talk about, to be honest, in my view, are entrepreneurial by definition.
Perfect. And speaking about, taking what is existing and pushing the envelope further, I want to head back to Bárbara. Bárbara, can you talk about what your team did at the bootcamp in terms of taking ECOPLASO to the next stage?
It was like really, really funny because during the bootcamp we started with, I don't know, maybe 10 ideas, and every day we changed like 3 or 4 times ideas. And almost like, it was like really normal. Because at the end of the day, we were asking like other teams, how are you doing? And they say, we have no idea. We just change again. And we are just pivoting. So we just have to start over. And we said, okay, should be like normal, I guess. And then there was a moment where everyone started to talk about their own startup or idea. And then I just said, okay, I used to have an ECOPLASO idea and we do this. And they say, whoa, that's amazing. Maybe not for the food packaging, but maybe we can like rethink the idea. And I think the last 2 days of the bootcamp, we redesigned the idea. And at the end of the bootcamp, we came out with the idea of using that bioplastic on the 3D printing filaments industry. And it was like so amazing because I didn't even thought about it like before. And we said like, come on, that's a huge idea because 3D printing is like almost everywhere. You can use it like even to print food, And well, we worked on the idea like for the last 48 hours of the bootcamp, and we did like almost everything. We Skyped everyone like all over the world because the team that I was working with, there were some guys from India, from Singapore, from USA. So everyone has a friend who was part of even a makerspace, or they got a 3D printer. So they say, okay, we have to ask what are the common problems. And for the last like almost 5 hours, we Skype with a lot of people like from all over the world, and we got the insights of the problems of the 3D printer filament, and we say, okay, we got a huge idea. And it was like really amazing because after that, when I came back to Mexico, I started like, I keep in touch with the people from the bootcamp, and we started to work together like to really make this idea happen. And well, now we're still working on that because I think that was a huge insight, like a globally insight of a new product that can be like really affordable and available and even sustainable. So yeah, actually the bootcamp was like a really change maker for me as person, but also for ECOPLASO as a startup.
So suddenly, you just grew your network of like-minded individuals who are innovative, who are entrepreneurial, and your global reach and your global understanding of what could be grew exponentially through the bootcamp. And we'll head back to Luciano for...
Luciano's okay.
I apologize. For your final thoughts on the boot camp, and then we'll head into the questions because TikTok time's running out and lots of questions.
Yeah, I think one important thing during the bootcamp is the teamwork, and the diversity is amazing because when you have the opportunity to see people of all over the world with the same passion, with a lot of energy, and of course it's not just a romance. There is a lot of energy on the room normally because we are talking with a lot of smart people with a lot of passion, and this is a amazing part of the process. I think the diversity and the learning with the teamwork and ideas from people all over the world. You have to learn how to let it go some ideas. As Bárbara said, it's an important part of the process because we will need to have ideas every day during the work. Don't worry. It's just, if you have to let it go idea, we will need to have more, and it's a part of the process. And the framework and the diversity for sure put you in a different direction. The community now, I don't know, but how many boot campers we have?
We have almost 400.
400. This
over
is
70 countries.
Yeah, it's like to have a research group, a giant one. People know that you are working on specific kind of technology or solution. You receive information all the time. This network continues after the bootcamp, and it's amazing. It's like a giant family now, and this is amazing. It's really impressive.
So just to add a little bit to Luciano's point, really the bootcamp is 6 days, but what happens after the bootcamp is we feel to be significantly important, and this is where the community comes in. You share your idea, and then you say, "Hey, is anybody else interested? Maybe we can work together." And that's been impactful. Now, the way it's going to work with the questions, because we have so many questions, we're going to go to Paul, then we're going to go to Bárbara, and then we'll head back to Luciano. So, Paul, we're gonna start with you. You noticed some patterns in the questions that were asked. Maybe you can call out the people who asked those questions, and then dive straight into the questions themselves.
Yeah, sure. So I guess there are two groups of questions. The ones that Mohammed, Adamu, Carlos, and also Mark Byron. I guess your questions are basically around like what are the investment landscapes, or you are actually looking to invest in the African or the Latin American, the scarier countries that I will put it. Now, I guess I'll just answer this at a very high level, like feel free that you can through Andrew or through the webinar and send me personal emails. I'm happy to address the questions and for everyone else as well. Now, there's one thing that I want to clarify here is investments and business are two different things. A great business can be a bad investment. It all depends on what price you pay. So normally when people say, is it smart to invest in emerging markets? I tell you what, there's no answer. It's ambiguous. It depends on what price you pay. If you're asking me to pay $10 for a company that will worth $11 tomorrow, it's way worse than asking me to pay for $1 for a company which will become $3 tomorrow. Now, it's all about the multiples. It's all about the return, which is percentage based. Well, obviously, if you are really rich, that like the recent funds that just being set up by the ex-SoftBank guy, which is 100 billion VC fund that might probably change the world going forward. Normally, we see emerging market as very, very interesting and exciting. Because normally when investors are looking at investment opportunities in places like US, UK, or even nowadays in China, you really want to see that the company is the best of the best. Because the market is very much saturated. So it's very much a red ocean that you are competing for shares rather than size. Now, if you go to Brazil, if you go to Nigeria, if you go to Ethiopia, trust me, the market is difficult. It's not without a reason why there is no people operating businesses there. But if it works for you, that you have a competitive advantage, you have a core advantage, then you will be the winner because there are no other players out there. So it's very much a different game. So the one thing that I would say is do not compare developing market versus developed market. It is two different games. All you need is the right mindset, put your right hat on when you think about the investment opportunities. And one advisor I would give any one of you trying to pitch the business idea in emerging market, do your homework right on the market. Like when you go to US, when you go to UK, you can very much like just present some rough figures like from a report from McKinsey or whatever to address your total addressable market. Don't do it if you are from emerging market. Know your market, do your bottom up primary market research. That's super important. You can't get away without primary market research in places like US because there's so many other people who have done the homework for you and they freely share it online, and you can just go Quora, for example, to get some of the service done. But in emerging market, know your customers. That's super important. Now, the second group of questions are very much around what do I think about entrepreneurship? I'll keep this really, really short. Now, going forward, I think in the next 10 years, it's going to be a winter for entrepreneurship. Now, I know this is against most what you guys are thinking. Entrepreneurship is being monopolized. If you see the trend, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn being acquired by Microsoft, Amazon buying Whole Foods, now BAT in China, India, entrepreneurship is somehow being monopolized. The comparative advantage of individual entrepreneurs is diminishing. Google and all these large corporates, they are increasingly more efficient to do entrepreneurship. If you agree, if you get what I'm trying to say. So the golden age of entrepreneurship from its peak time has actually gone down a little bit. Does that mean a problem? Not necessarily. It just means you have more competitions. 10 years ago, if you are an entrepreneur, you were probably one of 100. Today, if you are an entrepreneur, you are probably one out of 10,000. And there will be a lot of fake entrepreneurs around, like who basically just claim themselves being entrepreneurs, but actually they don't. Now, this becomes increasingly difficult for us investors to find out who are entrepreneurs. You have so many people like going to incubators, accelerators, and it increases the difficulty for us to screen that. So going forward, entrepreneurship is going to be more difficult. It's harder for you to stand out. And therefore, my answer is, if you're thinking about doing entrepreneurship, focus on results, focus on your barriers, focus on your technology, and focus on your business. That it's very important that you understand your niche and you understand the market. That will help you to survive. And entrepreneurship going in the next 10 years, innovation is still very important, but it's transforming from thinking about to start to thinking about to survive and to scale. Now, I know everyone in this webinar probably have read the book from Peter Thiel. It's From Zero to One. But what I'm telling you is we have gone through that 0 to 1. We have a lot more. If you are in artificial intelligence, big data, and blockchain, you are still in the 0 to 1. Otherwise, you are very much now into the 1 to 10 phase now. Not yet the 1 to n, but you are very much into the 1 to 10. You really need to think about like how do you scale your business that to get that critical mass. Otherwise, you will forever be a product, and that will be really hard for you to stand out. So that's really how I think about entrepreneurship and also the relationship with raising money.
Great. So, and just to add a little bit more to what Paul's saying is really this search for specificity in understanding your focus, understanding your problem, why you want to solve it, the passion surrounding that, finding right team members, And for those who don't already know, we have a series of courses on edx.org, what we call edX, and that's being founded by MIT and Harvard, and it's a platform similar to Coursera, where we have our courses available for you to take from all over the world. So I would definitely encourage you to consider looking at them. If you don't have time for the courses, look at the videos that we have on YouTube on these topics. Now we'll move on to Bárbara, who will be sharing a little bit more about the issues and the questions that have been posted.
Yeah, there is one question from Blair about what do economics of bioplastic look like versus traditional plastic. And this is quite interesting because for more than a decade, bioplastic have been essentially like a giant lab experiment. But nowadays, they are being part not only as a trend, but also as a common product. So plastics made from plants hold a lot of promise, given that most consumer plastic on the market today comes from petroleum. So some bioplastic can even turn out into garbage bags, bottles, like even Coca-Cola had their own like green bottles, straws, etc. But the issue with the bioplastic was that at the beginning the price was like really huge. It was like a niche product. But nowadays the technology has improved itself, and also there has been some government incentives, and even also some of capital investors have taken a look into the bioplastic sector. So the prices of bioplastic are plunging to that of the conventional plastics. And manufacturers, I think, like even industry, they are ready to swap out petroleum for plants. So I think there is a huge opportunity for the companies that are transforming into bioplastic or bio-based products. Even though nowadays only 2% of the world plastic productions came from plants. So there is a huge range of products that you can do with bioplastic, but it's still like quite low. I mean, 2% of the total plastic production is not.
So just to kind of discuss that a little bit, or kind of extract that a little bit more. So what, if I understand what you're saying correctly, Bárbara, really is the idea that bioplastics in its current form is still fairly not economical, but the part that where you need to get to in terms of bioplastics is scale, right? So when you get to a production scale that is significantly comparable to the status quo, you're going to see the price significantly get reduced. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And also nowadays with the petroleum prices problem, so it's going to be like a huge opportunity for the bioplastic sector. There was also a question about if there was like any program from the government to promote the use of bioplastic or the development. Actually, there is no like a special program, like not worldwide, but some countries has already banned the use of plastic bags and the use of styrofoam packages. But it's not like really like a strategy like to really reinforce or promote the development of bioplastic. Actually, they have to do it because they are not, like in many countries such as USA or France or even Germany, they are not allowed to use those plastic bags. So what is the market already doing? They're just doing like more paper bags, or they are just trying to do like wooden bags, but it's not actually like they are promoting like the technology evolution. I think the government, like, they need to be a little bit more innovative on the creation of programs that really promotes the research and development of those bioplastic or even bio-based products, because I think that will be the future. And since the last, I think 5 to 8 years, there has been a lot of research, and actually there is almost at least 12 types of bioplastic. All of them, they meet the technical properties and the quality properties to meet like almost every industry. So I think the issue is that the price are still being a little bit higher than the petroleum, but the potential of the bioplastic is huge.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I think the big part here is how can we achieve scale? And when we achieve scale, it's not so much of will we ever achieve scale, it's when we achieve scale, who's going to be there. And so I think, ECOPLASO being one of the ways in which you're looking to scale, that's going to be significant when scale happens. And then moving on to Luciano, talking about scale, you started at one farm. Now you are what, 200 hectares?
Well, sorry?
So you started Elio with one crop diagnosis issue. You're working on multiple issues at scale. You're working on multiple farms at scale. Share a little bit about the scale factor in terms of how you're scaling that, and also dive into the questions.
Perfect. We started really focus on in one area, focus on soybean. Then we learned a lot about this culture, this specific production, and when we felt that we was ready to try other kind of fields, we went to sugarcane, where the challenge again was really complex. I learned a lot more, and we started to do that. When we go to a new field, we identify the most important problems that we learn with the farmer and the operators, and we try to bring a solution for that using our technology and really try to put it in action. But the technique that we are using is actually to define a beachhead market, control it, systems, if it's really bringing a result. When we already get more customers, we go to another one and do the same thing. Now we are working with more than 10 kinds of fields, for sure.
And so let's get into the questions here. So would you like to start sharing?
I think there is some questions that go in the direction about the sustainability. Yes, for sure, the technology can help the agriculture be more sustainable. We are working with sensors, we are learning more about the fields, and with that we can use less defensives as petrochemicals. For example, we have in Brazil now a kind of weed that become resistant for the glyphosate. It's really problematic because people was using this thing to kill these weeds, but in a large amount. What happened? Now we have a plant that's resistant. With our technique, we can help non-GMO, for example, soybean. We have really big clients that just work with non-soybean. With our technology, we can help this soybean, this traditional, be competitive with the GMO. It's how it works. And the other question that I think is really important, and it's really aligned with what I'm doing now, is about the data standards. For sure, we need that. I really bring this idea to MIT. I talked a little bit really fast with Professor Sanjay Sharma. Is what I'm working now. The parallel is with the DICOM, what happened on medicine, and my idea is to create a group to study that. I already started to create the statements. And yes, the question is from Oliver Harley from Siemens, and yes, we are working on that, and for sure we need that.
Great. So just to kind of go back to Yvette's question regarding the sustainable production, food production.
Yeah.
So I guess really here the drones will be significantly helpful in terms of, like you said, reducing the use of pesticides, and then being able to identify where there are problems.
Yeah.
And then you focus and target, and so that not every part needs any sort of additional exposure to chemicals, because then it just becomes this whole big other issue. And so then you begin to see efficiencies of scale optimization, even planning, strategic planning, because prior to this, it was not very easy to get crop data, right? You would use satellites, but the resolution wasn't good enough, and now you are fundamentally able to start measuring, gathering data, and then look at implementing very, very specifically.
Yes, this technique we call the management zone is exactly with these high resolution images we can go really deep on the fields, and what we are creating is that map where we can create these management zones where we can reduce a lot the use. It's not like to spray 100% of every product. You can put 20, 30, 50 in areas, and in the end of the day, we are talking about a lot of economy. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Luciano. And with that, we've come to the end of the hour. It has been our pleasure to be with you, and we hope you have gained some insights and learned something new about the Beyond Food webinar, the MIT Bootcamp ecosystem, and how that could potentially help you to accelerate in your journey in innovation and entrepreneurship. We wish you all the best, and we hope to hear from you soon. And I would also add, if you have additional questions, if your questions were not answered in this webinar, please, if you'd like to connect with Luciano, with Paul, or Bárbara, please email us. We'll make those connections for you. All right, so until the next one, thank you, and see you later. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.